The Discoverers of the New World, Part 1. The epic tale of Christopher Columbus, Spain, land of kings, knights of faith and steel. Their banners fly high. His cross shines before the world, but his fate is not yet written beyond the horizon. A promise kept and a man will defy the immensity of the ocean. Christopher Columbus, before the Catholic monarchs, a Genoese navigator bows before the most powerful monarchs in Europe. He carries with him an impossible dream. Crossing the ocean to find a new way east, Isabel of Castile looks at him inside. A spark, a fire that will change history forever. God's friend fate has been sealed.
In the 15th century, Europe was experiencing a moment of transformation in Castile. A young princess named Isabel de Trastámara was destined to change the course of history. Isabel was born in 1451 in Madrigal de las Altas Torres, in a convent. Her childhood marked by the struggle for Castile's throne, where her half-brother Henry IV reigned. Amidst political tensions, Elizabeth received an exceptional education for her time. She learned Latin, history, theology, and showed great interest in politics and justice. Her youth passed between Avila and Segovia, where she began to forge her character as a future queen. In 1469, Elizabeth secretly married Ferdinand of Aragon, thus uniting the kingdoms of Castile and Aragon. This marriage was not only a personal union, but also a political alliance that would change the destiny of Spain. After the death of Henry IV in 1474, Elizabeth was proclaimed Queen of Castile in Segovia. His coronation marked the beginning of a reign that would transform Spain and the world. Elizabeth the Catholic was not only a queen, but a visionary. His support for Christopher Columbus led to the discovery of America, and his reign laid the foundations of modern Spain. His legacy endures as a symbol of determination, faith, and leadership. Fernando de Aragon, a key figure in these events, stands out for his influence and leadership. Fernando de Aragon was born in Seos del Rey Católico, a place full of history and charm. From his childhood, he was surrounded by the nobility and the influence of his father, Juan II of Aragon. His youth. Events would define her character and future role in Spain's history.
In the late 15th century, in a world where maps ended at the edge of the known ocean, a bold man dreamed of the impossible. Christopher Columbus, a Genoese navigator, had a vision to reach the Indies by sailing west, but his dream was not his alone. He needed the support of the most powerful monarchs of the time, Elizabeth, first of Castile, and Ferdinand, second of Aragon, the Catholic monarchs. This is the story of how a dream became one of mankind's greatest epics. In 1485, Christopher Columbus, a Genoese navigator with an intense gaze and an unwavering spirit, arrived at the court of the Catholic monarchs, Elizabeth of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon. His proposal was as bold as it was revolutionary, to reach the Indies by sailing westward across the Atlantic Ocean. In a sumptuous audience room with Flemish tapestries hanging from the walls and wrought iron chandeliers illuminating the room, Columbus unfolded maps and navigation charts before the monarchs. He argued that this route would be shorter and safer than the traditional eastward route through Africa. However, not everyone was convinced. The royal advisors branded him a dreamer, and some even considered him a madman. But Columbus, with iron determination, persisted. After years of negotiations, rejections, and debates, in 1492, the Catholic monarchs decided to bet on him. On April 17th of that year, at the capitulations of Santa Fe, Columbus received the support he needed: 3 caravels, a crew, and the title of Admiral of the Ocean Sea. This was the first step in one of mankind's greatest epics.
Admiral, you have the 1,000,000 maravedis. You can start preparations and move to Palos de la Frontera.
Highnesses, gentlemen, my faith was not a dream. I have stepped on Indian soil and the Hispanic pavilion trembles next to the saint, emblem of Christianity. I will soon leave.
To prepare.
Such an enterprise, your highnesses. Stay with God. The departure of the caravels, sticks of the border, the dawn awakens to the ocean. In the port, 3 ships await. The Santa María, the Pinta, and the Niña. Some pray, some cry. Everyone leaves without certainties, only suspensions. And in Spain he maintains it. The horizon is calling. History is being written with the backing of the Catholic monarchs. Columbus headed for Palos de la Frontera, a small port on the Andalusian coast. There, preparations for the expedition began. He hired experienced sailors, soldiers, knights, mercenaries in the service of kings, many of them attracted by the promise of riches and glory. Among them stood out the Pinzon brothers, Martín Alonso and Vicente Yáñez, captains of La Pinta and La Niña, respectively. The carabelas, the Santa María, the Pinta and the girl, were carefully prepared. Provisions for several months were loaded. Barrels of water, sacks of flour, salted meat, wine and homo navigation tools such as astrolabes and compasses. Weapons, swords, spears and arquebuses were also shipped in case they encountered resistance. The atmosphere in the harbor was a mixture of excitement and awe. The families of the sailors and soldiers said goodbye in tears, aware of the risks involved in focusing on the unknown. On August 3, 1492, the 3 caravels set sail from the port of Palos de la Frontera, heading for the unknown.
O brave sailors, soldiers and knights of Santa María, La Pinta y La Niña, today from this port of Palos. Not only did we leave behind the coasts of Castile, but we entered the vast ocean, towards which no man has dared to go. I do not call you a mere voyage, but an enterprise that the centuries will remember with the blessing of their highnesses. The Catholic monarchs and the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ are in our hands. A destiny that transcends the known. Know then that we are not mere seamen, but instruments of divine providence. Our mission is not only to sail, but to discover, to bring the light of the holy faith to unknown lands, and to flee under the same cross to all the children of God. I know the ocean is huge and full of mysteries, and that your hearts may tremble at the unknown. I tell you more, do not be afraid, because the hand of God guides our ships and the stars mark our path. If the waves rise furiously, we will face them bravely. If the wind leaves us, our faith will propel us. Because we are men of Castile, children of a land that knows no fear, and our courage is as great as the sea we sail forward.
Well,
may the world see that there is no horizon, that we cannot reach neither fear in our hearts nor feet, that we cannot fulfill for the
glory be to God.
For the honor of our kings, and in the name of Spain, let's make history. Long live Isabel and Fernando.
Long live Isabel and Fernando! Long live the Catholic monarch! Long live Castile and Aragon!
Attention sailors, all to your posts. Untie moorings and release lines, that no one fall asleep at the helm. Today we leave for the unknown. Raise the mainsail and secure the boom, that the wind will carry us beyond where no man has sailed. Helmsman, keep course west. Let the compass and stars guide us, and watch the sails. Let not a breeze escape us. And he promises you, he assures, those ends that we do not want to slip away at the first blow of the sea. Remember that today we are not simple sailors, but pioneers of a new era. May God guide us and the wind carry us to a safe port. Go ahead then, and let the girl prove her alliance.
Let's secure the best possible rigging since we venture into open water. I want the Pinta with all her sail arranged to take advantage of this northeast wind. Ratchet well hunted and that the focus receives a good wind. Adjust the sails so that there is no loss of speed.
At your command, sailors, to your post. Secure the mainsail and firmly fasten the neckline. I don't want a loose railing or a single line without its firm turn.
Put double watch on the bow. We must be cautious as we're not out of known waters yet. Any strange currents or signs of a storm, keep going southwest until we find out. The Admiral. Then we will adjust according to your orders.
You raise the rod of the ratchet, ensuring the sail does not flare and is tightened properly. It will be done, sir. I will assign 2 men to the bow castle to keep the watchtower alert to the order, Captain.
The crossing across the Atlantic Ocean was a test of endurance and faith. For weeks, the caravels navigated through an endless ocean, facing calms, chichas, headwinds, and the crew's growing restlessness. Days became eternal, and supplies began to dwindle. The worn out and sick murmured about returning, but Columbus, steadfast in his conviction, stayed on course. Storm and doubt, darkness, wind, thunder, tearing the sky apart. The ocean rises like a hungry monster. Fear seeps into the bones. Let's go back, some cry, but the Admiral's faith is not broken. Neither wind nor fear will stop the fate of Spain. But Columbus, firm in his conviction, kept the course. Every night he watched the stars with his astrolabe, tracing the route to the west. Finally, in the early morning of October 12, 1492, the cry of Tierra, Tierra resounded from La Pinta.
Land, land, land in sight.
But they had not reached the Indies. They had arrived at an island in the Caribbean that Columbus named San Salvador. This was the climax of the expedition, the moment when 2 worlds met for the first time. On October 12, 1492, Columbus's expedition arrived on an island in the Caribbean that the natives called Guanani. Columbus baptized her San Salvador and took possession of her the name of the Catholic monarchs. The natives, half naked and adorned with feathers, stared in amazement at the newcomers. Columbus and his men disembarked, planting the flag of the Catholic monarchs and thanking God for having guided them to safety. The natives, curious but cautious, approached the Europeans exchanging gifts and gestures of peace. Columbus, convinced that he had reached the Indies, began to plan his next step, explore more islands and establish a small representation there to continue that expedition through American lands. After their arrival, Ana, San Salvador, Columbus and their men began to explore the neighboring islands. Along with the sailors, soldiers and knights traveled religious, including friars in charge of evangelizing the indigenous people. The natives, curious but cautious, approached the newcomers exchanging gestures of peace and gifts. The religious, dressed in simple habits, tried to communicate with them by showing crosses and teaching words in Spanish. Columbus noted in his diary the beauty of these lands and the intricacy of their inhabitants, describing with amazement their way of life and their connection with nature. This was a moment of mutual discovery, where two worlds began to know each other. On October 28th, 1492, Columbus arrived on an island that the natives called Cuba, convinced that he had reached the Asian continent. He christened her Joan in honor of Prince John, heir to the Catholic monarchs. Cuba was larger and richer in resources than the previous islands, and Columbus was impressed by its beauty and potential. Here, the Spanish established contact with more indigenous people. The religious with patience and dedication began, and Baba to teach them the Christian faith using religious gestures and symbols. Columbus noted in his diary how the natives showed curiosity about all the expedition's gadgets, especially because of the crosses and prayers that the friars taught them, eager to learn the unknown. In December 1492, Columbus arrived on an island that the natives called Haiti, and which he baptized after the Spanish one. Here, the Spanish found a fertile territory rich in resources. The religious, with the blessing of Columbus, began to build a small chapel and celebrate masses, trying to gain the trust of the indigenous people. However, cultural differences and the imposition of new beliefs led to tensions. On the night of December 24th, 1492, the Santa María, Columbus's flagship, was sailing near the coast of La Española. The exhausted crew, after weeks of travel, relied on their helmsman's experience. But in the darkness, fate played a cruel trick. The ship crashed into a coral reef, and the sound of wood breaking against the rocks resounded like disaster. Columbus, awakened by the impact, ran to the deck. The waves beat furiously against the hull of the Santa Maria, and water began to seep into the hold. The sailors, shouting desperate orders, tried to save the ship, but it was too late. The Santa Maria was lost. In the midst of the chaos, Columbus remained calm. He knew that this setback couldn't derail his mission. With determination, he ordered his men to save everything they could: supplies, tools, and most importantly, the hope of continuing. The sinking of the Santa Maria wouldn't mark the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. In this epic tale, Columbus founded the first European settlement in the New World, Strong Christmas. Although initially there were peaceful exchanges, the relationship with the natives soon became complicated, marking the beginning of a period of conflict and tensions. In January 1493, Christopher Columbus, with his heart full of triumph and his mind full of dreams, decided to return to Spain. He had fulfilled his promise to find a new route to the Indies, but in reality, he had discovered a whole new world. I leave behind Strong Christmas, European presentation in the New World, under the care of a group of brave men, among them clerics and religious, priests and friars, who would continue the work not only of the evangelization of those souls, but of educating them in faith, in writing, leading culture and civilization, the arts and music, letters or architecture, and building schools and hospitals.
The two caravels.
Remaining, the girl and the Pinta sailed east with many stories and tales about the new world that would change the course of humanity forever. The journey back was not without its challenges. Furious storms lashed the ships and contrary winds tested the endurance of the crew. in his faith and vision, he led his men with a sure hand. Finally, on March 15th, 1493, the caravels arrived at the port of Pakistan Frontera. Columbus was received as a hero. The Catholic monarchs Elizabeth and Ferdinand received him in Barcelona with unprecedented honors.
Your Highnesses, most serene and Catholic kings of Castile and Aragon, Don Fernando and Donna Isabel.
The Admiral of the Ocean Sea, discoverer of the new Viceroy world,
And Governor of
San Salvador, Cuba, and the Spanish, the most illustrious Admiral, Don Christopher Columbus. With it not only riches, but also the proof of a new world that would expand the horizons of Spain and all of Europe. The religious who accompanied him informed the church about the souls who hoped to be saved in those distant lands. This was the end of Christopher Columbus's first great epic, but only the beginning of a new era. An unknown world had been discovered, and with it a future full of possibilities, challenges, and dreams to fulfill. The history of humanity would never be the same again.
Where the orb bowed and the sea, if you don't know me, spun terror. An empire of daring rose up, defying the jaws of black horror. Spain, crucible of steel and bravery, with faith as her heart and the sun as her coat of arms, forged her eternal figure in the conflict and planted her gaze beyond reason. Land, land, land in sight, the watchman shouted in a guttural voice. And in the Holy Mary, the cross blessed, touched the waters of an immortal world.
It was the Queen.
Isabel of Castile Forjada, who elevated her lineage with unparalleled faith from Avila, came with a tempered soul, and her crown forged unity with Fernando Leon and Centella, taming the kingdoms with light and truth, along with the Moor in Granada. His defeated image surrendered to the sword and Christianity.
They weren't alone.
The brave warriors, neither the iron of the saber nor the roar of the cannon were.
Friars.
Marine chroniclers and travelers.
Who gave to?
Spain, its great dimension, chaplains and wise men, soldiers and cartographic kings, waiters armed with ardor from the high towers and docks, children of Spain forged in the sun, warriors. Hot with a temperate step, they crossed the seas in search of God in them.
Sails the wind.
They breathed sacred air and lost faith and honor within their souls.
In the subsequent chapter, Ode to the Discoverers of the New World, second part, the epic tale of Hernán Cortés and La Malinche,